So inflation just hit its highest number ever. What is happening? Why is this a problem? Well, we're looking at 5 to 6 and even sometimes 7% inflation rates, and it's only gonna get worse. And this is freaking everyone out. You've probably noticed this. Gas prices are going up, the cost of milk is going up, everything is more expensive. Buying a car is $20,000 over MSRP, and we're all freaking out because life is just getting that much harder to survive. It's getting that much harder to actually make enough money to be able to afford the cost of living in this country. So what is happening? Why is this a problem? Well, when we talk about inflation, number one thing you need to understand about inflation, people call inflation the silent killer, or it kills your wealth. That's all true, except for the fact that it's worse than that. Inflation is what I call a democracy killer. If you look back in the times of any republic, any democracy, inflation is what is always the downfall of that society. Of course, combining with many other things. But look back at the times of Rome. As a matter of fact, right here is a perfect example. In my pocket right here, in my hand, this is a Roman silver coin. Their currency was printed on gold and silver coins. However, as their empire grew, they slowly but surely wanted to print more currency. So instead of printing with silver and gold, they started to print with bronze. And they started to inflate and devalue their currency. And this is one of the biggest things that led to the destruction of Rome. Why? Why is it a democracy killer? Because inflation makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. Think about it. If you have more assets that are worth a lot more money and inflation goes up, those assets become worth a lot more money. If you're worried right now that gas is through the roof and you wonder why, how are we am I gonna get around inflation? Well, you know who's not worried about inflation? The wealthy, because the wealthy own assets. When inflation hits, assets become worth a lot more. I'm currently sitting on a 1969 Mach 1. This car has gone up in value much more in the last 2 years because this is a commodity, it's an asset. Real estate is an asset. Your business is an asset. Owning assets when inflation occurs will increase your wealth. Look back at what happened with the coronavirus in 2020. Look at how much wealth was created and transferred to the wealthy. The wealthy got so much richer. And why? Because they know how to stay on top of inflation. They know how to play the game of wealth. So for you need to understand how serious inflation is. Think about it. We printed $6 trillion in 1 year. That's 60% of our entire supply of printed money in the entire history of the United States. That's insane. We did that in 1 year. That's not without consequences. And by the way, you're not going to stop here by feeling the effects of inflation. We've only just begun by feeling the effects of inflation. It's just going to get worse. So how do you stay on top of it? How do you put your money and grow your wealth in a time of inflation when everything seems so scarce? Number one thing you need to do is you need to start owning assets. If you don't have enough money to start buying assets, then you are in a very serious rush to start making more money. You need to start a business. You need to get a skill set that doesn't have a cap to how much income you can have, because you need to start making more money and start acquiring as many assets as possible. Assets can be anything from commodities to businesses to real estate, you name it. You need to own as many of these things as possible, and you need to own as the least amount of cash as possible. Your cash is trash right now. If you start saving your money and think a long-term strategy is to have a lot of cash, you're wrong. And that's the problem, because the rich own assets. The poor or the middle class, they stash their cash, they save their money, and they try to have all this money saved up for their retirement. And as inflation grows, they're losing money. Every single year, when inflation hits 5 and even 6%, you're losing 5 or 6% of your money's value every single year. That's insane. That means your money's literally going down. You have to put your money somewhere where it's going to grow. So the best places where you can start to start growing your wealth and stay on top of inflation is 3 things. Number 1, you need to buy, own, and start businesses. You know why the rich aren't worried about inflation? Because when they're the ones who own the gas stations and own the oil and price of oil goes up, they don't care. When their business, when inflation goes up, they raise the prices in their business in order to stay on top of inflation. So buy and own and start as many businesses as possible. Number 2, real estate. You have to own land. The more land you own, the better, because there will never be any more of it. You will never lose in the long-term scheme when it comes to land. You have to start buying and acquiring as much real estate as you possibly can. So number 2 is real estate. Number 3, one of the best hedges against inflation that you could ever have is cash value life insurance. Whole life and IULs. These are the best investments you can make in regards to growing your money and staying on top of inflation, something that will never take a loss, something you never have to worry about in regards to the inflation rates, in regards to what your interest rates are. You stay on top of it. So inflation, it's happening. You have to stay on top of it or you're gonna get swept away with the tide. Be one of the wealthy, be on the side of wealthy, and start buying and owning as many assets as you can.